And our next guest is Jason Ferguson. Jason is a sought-after motivational speaker, author, and consultant known for his energetic and transformative approach to mindset and resilience. With a foundation as a former collegiate athlete and years as a top-performing sales leader, Jason has firsthand experience overcoming setbacks and driving success in high-pressure environments. And what is also exciting is that Jason has worked with our own story doula, JT, to author a book, which will be coming soon, so he can talk about his own journey as an author as well. Welcome, Jason, and thank you for being here.
First and foremost, amazing intro. Let's go. I see you. So excited to be here. Like I call her JT, Jen Tate. JT is like, she's so much more than my coach. She's like family now, you know what I mean? So the moment she reached out and asked if I'd participate, it was like, duh, like no brainer. So excited to be here and grateful to have been able to, not only meet you both, but the pleasure of working with JT because she's been a game changer in my process and my journey.
JT, I'm using that from now on. Why have I not been calling her that? Thank you for that, Jason.
I got you. I got enough nicknames to go around, so don't worry.
He's really good at the nicknames.
You know what?
It's great to see your face, my friend.
JT, Jen, I'm going to let you take the lead from this interview and sit back and enjoy a sip of water. So go for it.
Do it. You've earned it, May. You've been going hard. Hi, Jason. It is so good to see your face.
Man, it's been too long, but we still text quite frequently, which is great.
We do. I just love when a text from you shows up, and I take a lot of, well, they'll understand later, I take a lot of great pride in the fact that I actually text you while I'm watching football now, which was not a thing that happened before. Also, can you, first of all, we are all very happy that you are back in your house. You were evacuated because of the fires. You're safe, your family's safe. I'm so glad. This has just been harrowing to watch. I hope those around you are finding their way back to life and moving forward.
Yes, everyone's safe, sound, like obviously some devastating losses in terms of like properties and things like that, but nobody that I know has like lost their life, which I think is the most important piece. And I think obviously my brain, right, finding the good in it, it's been a beautiful thing to watch the community band together. Like whether it's friends, colleagues, like everybody's opening their doors to everybody. So like there's some beauty in that. I think that's been like a positive takeaway, is like watching everybody come together. But yes, it's been absolutely insane. And I'm just grateful everybody's healthy.
As are we. Well, so let's give folks an idea of what our journey working together was like. It was about a year and a half ago when I think you reached out to May and May connected us and we started talking. So tell people what you were hoping to do at that point and what our story is, yours and mine.
Oh yeah. So I was knee deep in writing my book, like as is. I had spent maybe at that point 2.5, almost 3 years, just kind of limping along in the writing process. It was really important to me that I wrote the book. We don't have to get into all of those details just yet, but like I was not looking for a ghostwriter. It was important that I call them bars. Like I wanted these to be my bars on the paper. And I had went to a different publishing company and they were trying to take what I wrote and they were very specific in what they thought I should do. And it wasn't really based on my story. Like there were elements of my story, but it was more of a business book. And I'm like, dude, I have a business book already like in my mind. That's not this book. Like I'm very specific around like the book that I wanted to write. So like, rather than working with them, I went on the journey of finding somebody that I can work with that could take my thoughts and like ideas and help me craft this thing into what it is today. So I reached out to May and then May made the intro to JT. And I'll never forget that first call. JT was walking around. She was in New York. What is that? The big park?
In Central Park. I was literally sitting in Central Park.
And the moment we hopped on that Zoom, like your energy, your smile, I'm like, this is my girl right here. And like, obviously the icing on the cake was like, you being curious, and like, rather than telling me what you could do, you really were interested in learning about where I was at in my journey, what was my journey, and like what the potential outcome was. That was so important to me, because it was more about like what I was interested, rather than what you could quote unquote like bring to the table. That attracted me a lot. Obviously your energy was like the icing on the cake. And then we embarked on like this crazy journey of me giving her 140,000 words to review. And somehow she got through the 140,000 words, helped me polish this manuscript over time. We went back and forth as partners. She listened well. She challenged me well. You know, I like to consider myself to be coachable because I'm an athlete, but you know, this is my baby. So when somebody gives you constructive criticism, it's hard not to get tight, right? But she did it in a way that was very coachable, or a great coach nonetheless. And we worked through it as teammates, you know, and just very grateful to have met you and be able to be on this journey with you. Because even though now we're in the publishing stage, you've still been very much part of the process. Like, you're still tapping in. Where are we at? What's going on? How are you feeling about like their suggestions, their recommendations? She's constantly reminding me like, yo, this is your book. Like, if you don't like some of the things that they're suggesting, like, you can also put your foot down. So the journey has been long, but we are at the finish line. And yeah, it started quite a while ago with me hand delivering those 140,000 words.
Yeah, it was amazing. And what's your word count out now? We took it down to like 50 or something for a while, but that was also then we needed to build some stuff back into it. So
Yeah.
those numbers are kind of mind-blowing to think through, right?
You got to give people some context too, right? Because not everybody knows books and word count. Like, the average typical nonfiction book now in this day and age, where people like shorter, is 50,000 words, and a novel would be 80,000 words, and a massive, huge, gargantuan tome like Game of Thrones would be 120,000 words.
Yeah. So I delivered it at 66,000. And first of all, they loved it. They were like, yo, and there are elements of my writing and some of my takeaways that they were just like hard pressed for me to elaborate more. They're like, show, don't tell. What about this? So they wound up forcing me almost to like add more to it. And I actually agreed with some of their feedback. So now we're at about 90,000. But in my opinion, so like, I was very nervous about that, because I know like heavy, long-winded books can sometimes be a deterrent. But I actually would agree that most of what I added to it made the book better. It just gave them more insight, better storytelling, more authority behind my concepts and takeaways, with like little bits and pieces of like research, you know what I mean, that could validate my point rather than it just being high level anecdotal, you know. So I do believe that it enhanced it, and I hope that the readers feel the same way. We're going to see soon.
Well, I mean, if you had told me a year and a half ago that I would have helped write a book or work on a book that was so heavily about football, like, I would have laughed in your face. I really would have. I got nothing against football, but I don't watch it. And I love sharing this story. My daughter's college football team was playing a few weeks ago, and I watched a play happen on screen next to her. And I texted Jason, because I was like, I just saw a guy do what you did in this chapter of this book. And he knew exactly what I was talking about and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, is this me? Is this happening? So like, your storytelling was so real and genuine and masterful and addictive that like it helped change who I am. Like it changed me working on it. So I am forever grateful to you for that. Also, continuously in awe. Early in this webinar, we were talking about the concept of like, wake up, work on your book, like, but in see do that. Jason does this on a level that I have never experienced before. Again, sort of inspired by what you used to do as an athlete. Can you tell people a little bit about what you've been doing to get this book written?
Yeah. So I think part of what drove me as an athlete was like, you know, having like a ritual, routine, and like being driven behind that routine. And I think part of my story, I lose myself in addiction, and to come out of that addiction and to find myself on the other side, like the way that I frame it is like my habits, my process had to be as crazy as my addiction behavior was, right? Like for me to like be able to get out of it and sustain the sobriety life, but also become the man that I want to be. And part of becoming that man was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. So I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the beauty in that was I was able to dedicate this, pocket of writing from like 4:30, maybe 5 o'clock to like 8 o'clock, maybe 8:30 every single day. So no matter what, I was writing for about 3 hours a day, even if it was just like, I only got out, a paragraph that I like, because I'm very particular and really hard on myself, then I'm gonna make sure that that paragraph is the best freaking paragraph on the planet. And at the end of that 3 hours, if that's all I got, that's all I got, right? But I was very intentional about using my morning space and my morning time to lock in with no excuses.
You really were. It was next level commitment. And it was just like, I was just trying to keep up. It was amazing. Well, so in thinking about what this process has been like for you, do you have any, cautionary tales or, things I'll do differently with my next book kind of thing? Like anything you've learned about yourself as a writer, as an author now, which is what you are. For people who are maybe, especially someone who might be working on a memoir, on something about their own life, personal like this.
Yeah. I think one, don't be afraid to go there. Like like there's a lot that comes with remembering and immersing yourself in the journey. And I found myself saying, damn, like, am I going to really tell it all? Like, am I going to overshare? Is that too much? And I think people find connection in authenticity. So I would say, like, if you're going to tell your story, excuse my language, fucking go there. Just go there and be comfortable going there, because this is the book that you're choosing to write. Nobody's forcing you to. So if you're going to tell your story, man, tell it, and tell it authentic, and be okay with the emotions that pop up. Like I would be crying, texting JT like, yo, like this memory just was crazy. And some of it was from triumph, and some of it was from like embarrassment and shame of like my behavior, the man that I had become. But like, I processed it, and there was some beauty in the processing, but I think that came from me being willing to like truly go there. So like that would be the first thing. Like if you read my book, there's gonna be cringeworthy moments, and like I like give it to you raw. Like that's just what it is. I think the other piece that's really important is to give yourself some grace. Like I think we're all our own worst critics. And like I would love something, go back and reread it, and I would be so hard on myself. So much to the point where like I was supposed to turn it in like 3 weeks before I actually did. And like I reread it 3 times, like a maniac, like just almost scared, holding on. Like it reminded me of when I did music. Like my verses were never good enough. The choruses were never on point. And it's like, dude, at some point, you got to let it go and like give yourself grace and trust that like you gave your best work. And I think if I were to write again, I would be a lot more intentional around those thoughts, and like not saying, hey, deliver it early and not be happy with it, but just like chill a bit, like give yourself some space, as long as you've brought your best work, be confident in that and like let it go.
I think those are great pieces of advice for on both ends. That's wonderful. I'm wondering about, so not everyone has a relationship with sort of public speaking the way that you do and are about to with your book. Could you share a little bit about sort of what the plan is as both a speaker and now as an author, that and what you're hoping will be next with that part of the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everybody wants like a bestseller. Don't get me wrong. Like I want that bestseller. Like I didn't write this book for it to collect dust, right? So I'm going to do what I can to push it, but I'm very mindful of like what I deem as success for this book. And I think in addition to it being a bestseller, I want to use it as a tool to get on more stages, to coach and consult more clients. And I think as long as I keep that in perspective, that it's a tool to help me do more of what I want to do and what I'm more like aligned with my purpose, then it's a success, right? And that's my goal. I want to leverage this book to get on more stages, to attract more clients, to do a fire PR run, and really help get my brand and my name out there, but also get my story out there with my messaging so people can buy into me. I had a hard time writing that business book out the gates because I'm like, people don't know who I am. You know what I mean? Like, why, if like, and I don't want everybody to feel this way. I don't want to discourage you, but this was my thinking, right? And it was like, I wanted to get my story out there to expand my brand and my story so I can write, you know, a bunch of books after this. So for me, it's a tool that I want to leverage most importantly. And like, that's the game plan, to get on more stages and hopefully impact and change more lives.
Fantastic. And speaking of stages, you did a TED Talk last year. Tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah, it was crazy. Because I speak often, like pretty frequently, but like they're never like memorized talks, like word for word memorized. So like that whole portion of like having to like really rehearse it and memorize it to the T was crazy. But it was another opportunity to prove to myself what I was capable of and like how I'd be willing to commit, right, in order to execute at a high level. And, you know, watching it kind of, you know, evolve into the success that it is today has been also like super rewarding. So that's been great. And then like I've already got, you know, some speaking engagements booked on the heels of like my book coming out. Like I haven't waited until my book is launched. Like I'm already leveraging the fact that it's in publication and what it's about and, you know, the potential impact. So like I'm getting out in front of it now opposed to like being reactive, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Jason, I have a question. Can I ask a question for you guys about can you get into more of the nitty gritty of what your process was collaborating with each other? Because we have some people in our audience who may not be doing the course or they may not be joining the Story Cure, but they may be interested in our book coaching services. So how did that actually work?
Yeah. So Jay, you want me to take it or you want to take it, JT?
You go.
So she took all 140,000 words and we like basically formatted it by chapter. So like we literally had like a Google Doc breakout for like every single chapter. And then we just attacked it piece by piece. And like what we would do is we would leave comments. So like she would read it, give her feedback on the chapter, give like recommended changes or adjustments or like things that we could consider. And then we go back and forth via Google Docs and like leaving comments. We would hop on Zoom calls, I want to say like weekly, if not bi-weekly. And then it evolved to like as needed because like we kind of got rocking and rolling with our process and it wasn't as necessary anymore. But like leaving comments and communicating via Google Doc was like game changer. Everything was in real time. I'd be like in my 9 to 5, like doing my sales stuff and I'd see a comment come through and like, I'd like put my call on mute to go check the comments. Like everything was like in real time. And she was extremely communicative and effective in her communication. So like, it didn't take long for her to get back to me or get back to a comment. Everything was turned around pretty quickly, which was also nice.
We also had a really fun experience where we would be having a conversation and then we would both have an idea. We would turn to our respective partners, my husband and Jason's wife, and double check, like, do you like this title? Do you like this? And we both say, okay, we got sign off from our partners over here. We're all going forward. I always enjoyed that. And one of the things I was using on the side that I think some people might be interested in is the software Scrivener, which if you don't know about it, I loved taking these Google Docs that I was getting from Jason, working with them within Scrivener so that I could do things like put his version of what we were working on and mine next to each other and see various versions. And I know you can do that in Google Docs, but it is a little harder. I found it much easier to sort of have to play around with the story as if it was a bunch of Post-it notes or something. Scrivener allowed me to do that. And I would play with it. And then I'd create a new Google Doc and I'd send it to Jason and he'd be like, wait, that's a little bit from chapter 2 and from 4 and blah, blah, and that helped us, I think, have a little bit more of an organic conversation about stuff because you knew the whole story, you know, whether or not you had the words in front of you. And I think that's something to sort of think about when you're in a book coaching relationship, is that, you know, the other person is the expert of their story, and for find however works for you to connect so that your book coach can help be as close to an expert as possible as well, if that
Oh
makes
yeah.
sense.
One other call out too that I just want to say is like when it comes to the coaching dynamic, I think the most important piece is communication. And I think like that's where I would say we excelled the most. Like you're a very strong communicator. I think I'd like to think that I communicated decently as well. And like when we agreed, and we were usually on the same page. When we disagreed, we communicated. So I think the communication and like the process that we created and adopted throughout the coaching cycle was on point. And that's what made this, I think, pretty seamless as well.
I love hearing that. And I just have one more question for you. You, I believe in our initial call, mentioned that there were stages that you could not take because you didn't have a book.
Correct.
Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because there are people who are coming to us wanting to write a book because they want to be speakers like you.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It was like I was getting these like high level like feedback, like when I would submit, and I could just tell I wasn't enough of an authority. I didn't have like 100,000 followers, right? So like, what else did I need to position myself as this position of authority on this topic? So for me, it was like making sure I have this book that can help position me as that is going to be a game changer. So like nobody straight up flat out said, hey, like you don't have a book, but what they did say is like, you don't have $100,000 or a book. And there was like one other thing. So it was like a list of things that like could help me position myself. And like, that's what kind of made sure I got this across the finish line. Cause I know with this book in my hand, not only can I hit more stages and make an impact, I think I'm going to get more yeses, you know what I mean? And there's going to be better conversations that are driven on the hills of like me publishing.
I mean, that is what I often tell people is that the word authority has author in it.
Hey, there you
So,
go.
hey,
Bar, I like that.
there you go. So yeah, I think that you're right. So I just want to say thank you for being here, Jason. Can you tell us where to find you? How can we follow you? And we want to know when your book comes out. So how do we learn about all that?
So you can follow me Instagram, _Jason Ferguson. I'm on LinkedIn, Jason Ferguson, website, jfinspires.com. And then book. So the final edit is going to be done in maybe like a week. So like we are at the finish line, like we're there. And then I start doing my audiobook because I'm also going to do an audiobook like the second week of February. And that's about a 3-month process. So I would say a May or June release with both the hard copy and the audio book. And then, yeah, man, we go to launch and I start doing PR and really trying to give this thing a push. And I cannot wait because it's been the longest journey. And it's not going to be nearly as long for like most of the people. I'm just a little bit crazy. It took me 4 years to get through it. But man, I'm so happy we're at the finish line here.
So excited for you, Jason. Thank you so much for being here. Love seeing your face.
And thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure. I believe in what you guys are doing I am so grateful for the coaching that I've gotten and just the overall guidance and relationships I've been able to build. So anybody that decides to work with either one of you, it's a blessing. And I think you guys are doing great work.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jason. That was so nice of you to say. Thank you for dropping by today. Stay safe there in LA.
Yep. All right, you guys.
Bye-bye.